Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this live stream review. We're about to dive into 7 church live streams from our Inner Circle subscribers. And if you have some tips as well, please drop them in the comments because we're not the only ones who can offer advice here. We're all here to help each other get better, so don't hesitate to put that in the comments. And also, why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments and let us know where you are tuning in from. It's always so cool to see how you guys are coming in from all around the world. If you'd like us to review your live stream next time we do this, which we do this twice a month, be sure to join Inner Circle. This is just $12 a month, and as an Inner Circle subscriber, not only will you get your live stream reviewed, but you'll get access to exclusive content, our live Q&A sessions, and you get access to our exclusive Slack workspace, which is probably the best part of the whole thing because you get to chat with us every day, and other Inner Circle subscribers get your questions answered. I mean, we're having a good time in that Slack channel.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. So go join Inner Circle. It's just $12 a month, and you get access to all kinds of things. I think that the value will blow your mind. You'll be surprised at everything that you get for $12 a month. Where you get access to that is at collaborateworship.com, or you can use the link in the description. But hold on, wait before you do that. We'll remind you at the end of this as well. So I think we're ready to dive into our first review. And you got anything before we do that?
Don't think so. Let's do it.
All right. So this first review comes from Kent Thompson from Peak Vision Church. So we'll go ahead and watch this and get right into it.
I can't imagine why I would do this all for high, 'cause it's all to lift you high. Whoa.
All right. That was solid. Very good. I mean, the main thing that I heard that I didn't like was the compression from Facebook and YouTube. There's nothing you can do about that. That's always just a bummer, isn't it? Really, I don't have a whole lot of tips to give here. I think you're doing an excellent job. If I were just to get nitpicky about it, I would say that the snare could be different. I wasn't crazy about like that high snappy snare, but that's all a personal preference. I have a video out there about snares, and I mean, the comments range from this to that because it all just depends on what you like to hear. So if that's the snare that you like, then go for it. I prefer like a more punchy snare because it has more energy to it whenever it hits. That's all in the snare tuning. I'm not going to get into that here because honestly, I'm really not that skilled at snare tuning. We always bring in a drum guy for stuff like that. And we did a video that talks about like some things you can try to get a different snare sound, and just go to Collaborate Worship YouTube channel and you will find that. So I'm just going to pass this over to Dylan to talk about the visuals.
Well, real quick, before we do that, he said that he wanted the critique he wanted for the sound was, how can he get a big, clean, loud sound? And I noticed listening to it, like, the sound could have been expanded a little bit. Like, how do you think they could have achieved that? Because it seemed like it was just a little squashed. A
little too, like, focused.
Yeah, like maybe it needs more focus in the low end or something.
The bass guitar was sounding good.
Yeah.
Let me listen to it again real quick. I mean, the bass guitar maybe is a little loud in the mix, and maybe that's what you're hearing, but I could definitely see, like, the sound needs to be widened out a little bit, like maybe some more reverb, maybe some more ambient miking. I'd be kind of curious to know what kind of ambient miking you are using, because adding that in could bring some more life, and it widens out the mix. I think you already have a great, bright, like, energetic sound in there. Maybe you're just looking to make it sound bigger, and reverb and ambient miking will do that. So just dial in those two things, bring some more reverb into the live stream mix, mix in some more ambient mics. Maybe you need to add some more ambient mics to pick up more of what's going on in the room.
All right, visuals. Honestly, I don't think I have any critiques. I thought it looked really good. And I watched this earlier, and it didn't show it in this song, but there was like this little multi-view thing they had going on in one song. See if you can skip around and find it. It like shows different shots at the same time. I can't remember where it was at, but it was really cool. I'd never seen that on a church live stream, and I thought it was kind of cool how they used it. There it is. There it is. Yeah, I think that's fun. Sprinkling that in throughout. I think they're having a lot of fun with their stream, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
It looks like a fun church too. It looks like a lot of young folk. That's always a good time. I think your coloring looks good on everything. As good as it can look when you got lots of colored lighting and it's hitting people's faces, which I can tell that's the look you're going for, and I think it looks good. There was one shot that looked kind of shaky, and you guys, I'm sure you already know that. I'm curious to know like what the issue is there, and if we could help you fix it to get that one shot, that one right there, to get it more stable. If you're here with us, comment and let me know if you know why it's shaky or if you need help figuring that out. Maybe it's a mounting issue. Maybe someone's holding it. I don't know. That's really the only thing I noticed was that shaky camera. What do you think?
I think it looks really good. I just want to point out, we can see your desire for excellence in the way that it sounded and the way that it looks. Like we can just see how much work you're putting into this live stream. And so our hats are off to you. Like really, really good job. Keep it going.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. While I get this next one loaded up, why don't you check on the comments and see what we got going on there.
Someone commented on the lower thirds lyrics saying that they thought they were a little bit large. I noticed that they were big. I personally didn't think that it looked bad, but I definitely, like, you typically see them a little smaller than that, but I like that you could read them, so that's always good.
Maybe they're thinking about like phone viewers, right? Because it's obviously really small on your phone, and they probably didn't have any problems reading it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I didn't feel like they got in the way. I thought they were big too, but they weren't in the way, so just...
What reverb that's suitable for that room?
So my reverb strategy is I like to have two different reverbs, actually three different reverbs. And the first one is a plate reverb for your vocals. And then the second one is a hall reverb with a pretty long decay time, like 3 to 4 seconds. And that's also for vocals. Have more of the plate reverb on the vocals and a little bit of the hall reverb mixed in, and then use the hall reverb on your instruments as well. And then the third reverb is like a small room reverb for your drums, your snare drum, and your toms. All those three reverbs work really well together. You're just going to have to dial in the parameters on those reverbs to fit your room. The main parameter you're going to dial in is the decay time. And you'll just kind of want to mess with that when you're there by yourself and just find where it fits with the room. Make sure it's not fighting with the room. Another thing you can do is put EQ on your reverb returns. So on your FX returns, you can EQ that. And sometimes there's a frequency in your room that's just not pleasant or whatever. And then you add reverb and it's replicating or it's reciprocating that same frequency range over and over in the reverb. So you go cut that out of the reverb and it solves the problem. So the two things to get it to sound right in your room: decay time, and then put some EQ on those effects returns.
Nice. And then Ryan Sabia, he's actually part of Inner Circle. I've talked to him here recently. He said maybe wider panning to get that bigger sound. What do you think of that?
Yeah, forgot to mention that. Great job, Ryan. So you want to put some if there's not panning on your instruments, you can pan them. If there is panning, you can pan further. Don't pan your vocals necessarily, but you can pan your guitars, especially if you have several different guitars. I like to pan, or you'll want to do this so it makes sense visually, pan it to the side of the screen that they're on. So if you have an acoustic guitar on the left, you can pan them a little bit to the left. Electric guitar on the right, you can pan them a little bit to the right. You can also pan your tom drums to make that sound more interesting. You can pan even your guitar or your piano over to the side that it is. I would just mess with that. You don't want to pan too far. Usually anything more than 50% is too far because you're just going to notice that it's panned. So somewhere less than 50%.
Cool. All right, I think we're ready to go to the next one.
All right, so this next one is Peter submitted, Peter Wallace from Living Waters Church. Let's go ahead and take a listen. We'll go from there.
the blood that Jesus shed for me. Way back on Calvary, the blood that gives me strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. It reaches to the highest mountain, and it flows to the lowest valley. The blood that gives me strength from day to day. Never lose its power. It reaches to the highest mountain. It flows to the lowest valley.
All right, awesome. Thanks for sending that in. The first thing I want to comment on is I could hear everything that was going on there. Everybody I see on the stage, I could hear, and that's my hats off to you because that's a great balanced mix going on there. The first thing that I noticed that could be improved is there was kind of a weird something is out of sync, like with the sound. I'm wondering if your ambient mics are out of alignment. If I had to guess, that's what it sounded like to me. You'd notice there's kind of sounded like the lead vocal there had a little bit of odd reverb on him in the beginning, and it's just like it was a sound misalignment. So I'm curious what's causing that problem. I would check the ambient mics first. You want to make sure that the sound coming through the ambient mics is lining up with the sound. So the position of your ambient mics determines how you line those up. If your ambient mics are kind of aligned with right under your main speakers, you shouldn't have any alignment issues. But if they're behind the speakers or in front of the speakers, you are going to have alignment issues. And in that case, you need to delay something. So if they are behind the speakers, actually, we need to get that video made on where you pop the balloon in the room so you can get everything aligned. Because I mean, it's kind of hard to determine without actually seeing your room. So since you're an Inner Circle subscriber, go into the Slack workspace and tell us where your ambient mics are, and then we can provide some tips on how to get that sorted out. Other than that, I thought that the mix sounded really good. The bass guitar sounded good. The drums sounded good. It looks like you're using a mixture of, you think those are all electronic drums? I know this. I see the electronic cymbals, but with how clean they sounded, I'm going to guess that those are all electronic drums coming through. And I'd be interested to know what kind of drum kit you have. So if you're on here, drop that in the comments because I thought it sounded pretty good. Mm-hmm. I'm usually not a fan of electronic drum kits, but
yeah, the only thing that really gave it away for me was the snare sound.
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of hard for digital drums to get.
Yep. Let's take one more listen real quick.
That gives me strength from day to day. It will never.
You hear that alignment issue? It's causing even the female vocals to sound a little bit strange. Mm-hmm. So getting that alignment issue is going to solve a whole lot of things. It's just going to make your mix sound really good because I can tell it already sounds good. That alignment thing's just kind of throwing it off a little bit.
All right, let's talk about visuals. Go ahead and throw that back up, Mason. I think it's looking good. I wasn't really paying attention a second ago, so I'm trying to look at it again. Your white balance is the only critique I think I have. It looks a little warm and green, so if you're able to adjust that in the camera or in your streaming software, I'd get your white balance drop down a little more towards the cool side, and then your tint a little more towards the magenta side. And you can kind of go off of some white that's in the scene to judge how like close your white balance is. You just try to get it like as close to white to your eye that you can. And then I notice on the lead singer's forehead is a little blown out, and that might be a lighting issue where there's too much light on him. Well, I guess it's kind of all of them now that I see that one shot. You can adjust your camera exposure to fix that. Drop it by like one step, and I bet that would go away, or just adjust your front lighting a little bit. I think that's all I got, though.
Awesome. Thanks for sending that in. It's good stuff. All right. Well, I get the next one loaded in. Dylan, any comments or questions?
Let's see here. Thoughts on the Roland VAD drums here? Have you guys heard anyone use them in a more modern church setting? Any issues sound related?
We've not used them, so if anybody else here has, drop that in the comments.
I'm trying to, what does that comment say? So, grand piano feels sharp. Was there a grand piano in that?
There was a piano. I think it was just a keyboard sound. It was a little bit thin, I thought, at the beginning when it was by itself, and then it sounded good when it was with the rest of the band. So, yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Move on.
Let's move on to the next one. This is Nathan. He's from Good Shepherd Community Church. Take a listen here. I'll play the right one this time first. How about that? Here we go.
Over every weary soul, lead me, oh, oh, heaven come in heavy tree, signs and wonders be released, oh, King of the impossible, great miracle. See your kingdom come. We believe the war is won. Right here, be done. Come awaken us. Come awaken us. Oh, we can see your kingdom come. We believe the war is won.
Awesome. Thanks for sending that in. I'm going to pick on the lead vocal a little bit. Since it's the sound guy that's probably on the stream right now, we see your struggle. He's just in and out of that mic, that little punk. We're going to have to tie him to his microphone, get some duct tape, and tie him down. But one thing that I noticed on the mix is it sounded like a little muddy, a little busy in the low mid frequency range. And I'm looking at your band here, and it looks like probably your piano player and your acoustic player are occupying the same space. So you need to pick who belongs in that space and who's going to get out of it. In my personal preference, I would put the keyboard, leave it in that space, and then I'd put some EQ on the acoustic guitar to thin it out. Because I think that was the main thing making the mix sound muddy. So put a low cut filter pretty high, and then put a low shelving filter at about 800 hertz or maybe even 1 kilohertz, and drop that down 3 dB, maybe even 6 dB until that acoustic guitar just sounds really clean. So it can occupy that upper frequency range while the piano is taking care of that lower frequency range. And you're going to get a much more balanced sound out of that. And also with the drums, I think some of those things need to come up in the mix. The kick drum and the snare and the toms, there wasn't enough energy coming from the drums because they were a little bit too buried in the mix. So I would spend some time just mixing those in a little bit more. And since they're caged, you should be able to get some great sound out of those. And I know drums are really the hardest thing to mix because you got to get EQ right, you got to get compression right, and all that stuff. And maybe that's why you have them turned down so much, is because the compression isn't quite right. So get your compression dialed in, get your EQ dialed in on those drums, and then bring them up in the mix to increase that energy. Once you get that acoustic guitar thing fixed, I think I would start there. Get the acoustic guitar thinned out, and you're going to be surprised at how much different it sounds.
Cool. I feel that guy on the lyrics that he missed. I do that pretty often. And we have a confidence monitor in the back, so I don't really have much of an excuse. So let's move on to visuals. First thing I noticed were your lyrics. I think 4 lines kind of looks like a little bit too much on the live stream, and you might just be copying what's in the room. And if 4 lines is what you guys want to do, then keep at it. But I think it'd look better with 2 lines. 2 lines is what we do, and that's we don't put our lyrics on the stream. You can see it on our LED wall in the camera feed, so we just use it on that. But I think 2 lines looks kind of classy, and it's typically enough that you're not always looking for the next word to sing, as long as your lyric guy's on top of it. I think with 4 lines, it's just a few too much, and then it's just too much to read too at one time. And then he said he's using a PTZ camera with track lighting for the front lighting. So I can imagine that that's a lot of fun to work with. because I did notice that the lead singer was a little bit blown out. So if you're able to adjust the exposure on your PTZ camera down just a tiny bit, I think it might improve the look of the shot. And I think with what you're working with, it looks pretty good. One thing that might add some visual interest, if you're curious to test this out, is adding some more color wash to that back curtain. We actually have a video where we did that on our back curtain of our stage, and it actually spiced things up a lot more than you think it would. Obviously, that's going to involve spending some money, but if you have the money to spend, it might be worth looking into. And you could even still do the color you have on the cross there. You could keep that like a separate color from the rest of it, which would look kind of cool. I like the little string lights you got going on up there, though. And then one last thing, I think your white balance is just a tiny, tiny bit green. And I always comment on white balance because that's like what I do every day, all day is color footage, I feel like. So I'm always trying to nail white balance. I don't always get it right, but I try.
He probably goes to bed thinking about white balance.
Probably so. I will tell you, if you're ever recording something, like you're going to edit it later, get it as close as you can in camera. It's going to make your job in editing so much easier.
No, I'll just fix it in post.
Okay, maybe if you got a camera that does RAW.
Or if you have Dylan on your team, I just send it to him. Say, here, Dylan, fix this. I love the comments going on. Somebody mentioned that they would submit their live stream. Aaron said this, but their church currently doesn't have a full band. They're primarily using backing tracks. And then Samuel chimed in and just said, hey, bro, you don't have to be just like everybody else. Just submit your live stream. This is where if it's where your church is, just go ahead and submit it. And I agree with that. We're all like in this growing phase, right? And there's been Sundays where our band is mostly backing tracks because people are on vacation or whatever. So, I mean, you use what you have, right? So, yeah, go ahead and submit it anyway, and we can help you get better and take the next step.
We need to do a video on an acoustic set, because I bet a lot of people are pretty like bare bones and would like to see something like that, because we do like just acoustic guitar or acoustic piano from time to time to change things up. So if you'd be interested in that, let us know. We can do that for sure.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Let me pull up the details here. This comes from Alex. He's with River Valley Christian Center. And let's see here. Well, this says First Baptist. Maybe I didn't pull up the right link here.
Uh-oh.
Dylan, you're going to have to talk while I get this figured out. Oh, wait, that's what we just...
Come on now.
Y'all, I don't know why Dylan even lets me do this. This is... somebody else needs to, like, run the control board here. But I found it. So we're going to listen to it now.
All right, here we go.
Amen. Amen.
You see what I mean? I mean, look at this. I'm just like making a fool of myself here. The other live stream was still playing, and here I am. We're gonna have to.
All right, our guy Mason over there is going to apparently be doing that from now on.
We have Mason over here doing the video switching, but I think he's going to have to run the videos next time.
Kate
too.
can't handle it.
I think I need a nap or something. All right, here we go. For real this time.
Let my Jesus change your life. Hallelujah. 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 Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. 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 Amen. Amen. Who would take my cross to Calvary, pay the price for all my guilt? Who would care that much about me? Let me tell you about my Jesus. He makes a way where there ain't no way, rises up from an empty grave.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sending this in. I'm glad that we got to that part where it's just kind of the vocal by himself, because it made me hear what the real issue was going on here. And there's actually too much ambient miking in this mix. There's more ambient miking than direct sound coming from your mix. So bring those ambient mics down, and it's going to make it sound better. And I think those ambient mics being too high was also causing a pretty big EQ issue in the mix. And there may be some EQ issues anyway. If I were to come to your church and help you out with this mix, one thing that I would do is kind of just reset the EQ and start fresh. and start by EQing the room, because maybe you're putting all this EQ on the vocals and things like that to make it sound better in your room, but then it gets to the live stream and it doesn't sound very good in the live stream because the live stream doesn't need all that EQ because you're not in the room anymore. So EQing the room solves that problem because you put an EQ on your main mix to level out your room. That way you don't have to put all this EQ on your vocals and things like that. And so then you get a nice clean sound going to your live stream and your recording feed and everything else that it's going to. If you need help EQing your room, I have a video on how to do that. Go to the Collaborate Worship YouTube channel, type in EQ your room, and you'll find that it's one of my most watched videos. Just be prepared to set aside maybe an afternoon, maybe even an entire day if this is your first time doing it, because it's kind of more of an advanced skill. But here's the thing, you can do it. Just watch that video, practice it, then you'll have to reset it again and try it again. And you'll get right like on your third, fourth, maybe your fifth time, but just keep at it and you'll get it. And then you'll have to reset the EQ on all of your channels as well. But you'll find yourself not putting as much EQ on those channels once you get your room sorted out. As far as EQing vocals, I want to give you some really quick tips here on those first. You want to put a low cut filter somewhere between 120 and 180 hertz. And then you also want to put a peaking filter, and you want to cut somewhere around 400 to 800 hertz just to get rid of that boxiness out of the vocal. It'll really make the vocal sound nice and clean. And you'll set the Q value to around 3, and you'll cut about 6 dB. And you can also put a high shelving filter to add some brilliance to a vocal, and you put that at 10 kilohertz and you boost like 3 to 6 dB. Some people do this, some people don't. It's something that I like. But I think somebody mentioned the other day that even this could cause some problems if you don't have a nice clean sound system, if you aren't using power conditioning and things like that. It may introduce noise to your system. So if that's the case, do not put that peaking filter on there. Just abandon that one because it's totally a vanity sort of thing. But Dylan, I'll pass it on to you for visuals.
Can you full screen it for me, pretty please? I'm a fire Kate after this. I was looking at their submission a second ago to see what kind of cameras they were using, and they're actually using the same ones that we use, the Blackmagic Studio 4K. We got one Pro and one Plus. We use the Plus. So I'm noticing that it doesn't look as clean as I feel like that camera is capable of looking. I'm curious to know like what your ISO is set to. Optimally, you'd want it set to 0, which would be its native ISO. Blackmagic kind of does it a little bit differently. It's like measured by gain. And I believe that if you set it to 0, that would be your native ISO, which you're going to get the cleanest look. So when you set it to that, you're obviously going to have to adjust your lighting to get the correct exposure. And it said they're using some kind of LED lights for front lighting, and I can kind of see some magenta cast in the front lighting. I'm trying to determine if that's like some kind of colored lighting they have on stage or if that's just the cast that the lights are giving off. Can you tell?
No.
Because I don't see any magenta anywhere else. Maybe in the auditorium seating.
Yeah, I don't know.
My guess is that it's probably the lighting because the back wall doesn't look like it's off. The back wall looks like it's probably the right white balance. So that's tricky whenever you've got some front lighting that has a cast to it. How do we go about that? Because if you adjust it for their skin, then your back wall might look a little funky. But personally, I'd say go for getting your skin tones correct. I think that's more important than the back wall being the correct white balance. Because you can see a guy over on the right, he's looking pretty purple. And if it is colored lighting, see if you can get that off of their faces. And I think that would improve the look of it quite a bit. Because that's the first thing my eye notices is, again, that white balance. Like, I got a purple dude over there. But I think everything looks good with what you're working with. The string lights must be a common theme these days. I haven't seen very many of them up until now, but I kind of like it. Maybe we should put some string lights up on our stage.
Coming soon to No Limits Church, string lights.
String lights.
Inspired by the Inner Circle subscribers. All right, Dylan, while I'm loading up the next one, we have a few people asking how they get their live stream reviewed.
Well, you got to go join the Inner Circle. Mason, why don't you throw that slide up I was telling you about, the end screen. We'll get it here in a second. Here, I'll get you, Mason. So if you look here, you can see this is the landing page for Inner Circle. It is a subscription service we have where you get all kinds of cool benefits, and submitting your live stream is one of them. So you can see there, one of the cool things you get is the Mix With Me session. So if you saw recently, Cade did a how I mix lead vocals. Well, he actually recorded how I mixed the whole band, but you'll have to be a part of Inner Circle to see the entire thing, and it's pretty awesome. And then we have live Q&As once a month. Last week we did one with James Wassam. Who's the next one that we have?
Jake Goslin from Church Front.
Jake Goslin. I bet most of you guys know him. And then you get your live stream. You get to submit your live stream, and now it scrolled past it, and I've forgotten what else. What am I missing?
You tell me.
Oh, the Slack channel, which we've already talked about. You get to chat in our Slack channel with other Inner Circle subscribers and even us.
Yeah, so we are all caught up with the live stream submissions from Inner Circle subscribers. Once we get through today, we'll be all caught up with the ones who have submitted. So somebody was asking, like, how do I know where I am in the queue? You may be referring back to whenever we did live stream reviews kind of for everybody, and it just got kind of crazy whenever that happened. We had way more than we could ever get to, and that's when we reverted to doing live stream reviews for our Inner Circle subscribers. So if you want to get your live stream reviewed, join Inner Circle for just $12 a month, submit your live stream, and we'll get to it. We do them twice a month.
We're getting through the entire list of submissions right now, so if you get on it, you'll get it reviewed in 2 weeks, at the next live stream review. So
yeah,
there you go. Hop on it.
Awesome. All right, so next up, David submitted his stream from First Baptist Church in Canada. Awesome. All right, let's listen.
With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Filled with wonder, awestruck wonder, at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous victory.
All right, awesome. Thanks for sending this in. You guys got a big team going on there. That's awesome. Something that I think was messing up the whole mix was the electric guitar, and I hate to pick on the electric guitar, but sometimes they just don't get their tone right. And in this case, I don't think he had his tone right. And those are hard conversations to have because there's only so much you can do with the mixer to fix that problem. You really need your guitar player to give you something better to work with. I only see one electric guitar player, or is there two? Is that two acoustics over there and then one electric? I think is what we have going on. And if I'm hearing correctly, it was the electric guitar causing the problem. Also, the balance between your instruments and vocals, and this I haven't heard very often, but your instruments were actually too loud compared to your vocals. Your vocals were buried in the mix. You at least need to bring that lead vocal to the front of the mix because they were behind even the drums in this mix. So making that balance, bringing that into balance is going to make your mix sound a lot better too. And something I always tell my sound techs is the most important part of your mix is the lead vocal. If you get that one thing right, most people are not going to notice the other things that may be wrong with your mix. So start there and get your lead vocal to the front of that mix. She sounded a little thin too, so I think you're being a little too aggressive with your EQ filters on her. So bring some of that low end back into her mic so she has more warmth and energy to her sound. And then get that electric guitar sorted out. And somebody was out of tune as well. One of those guitars, it's hard to tell which one, but that throws off your whole mix as well. And again, nothing you can do with the mixer for that. You just need to talk to your band and say, hey, I need you guys to tune your guitars before service starts. Some guitar players think they only need to tune it once before rehearsal, but what really needs to happen, Dylan, because you're a guitar player.
You need to tune it before rehearsal and before the service. And if your guitar is going out of tune during the service, unless it's just like a really long one, then you probably need some new strings. Or look into maybe upgrading the tuners on your guitar, because the nicer the tuners, like the easier they are to tune, because there's more steps with each turn, so you can fine tune a little bit better, and it usually holds the tune better. So something you might want to look into.
Yeah, good tip.
All right, visuals, if you'll throw that back up. The only thing I'm noticing again is white balance. They're looking kind of cold, and then I think you could probably bump your saturation up a little bit, because the skin tones are just looking a little dull and a little ghostly maybe. So warm it up. When you warm it up, if it changes your tint, then adjust that either towards green or magenta until it gets normal. I mean, the easiest thing to do is adjust your white balance, look at your skin as you're doing it, like, okay, what should the skin look like on the screen here? And then just adjust your white balance until you get it close. That's really how I did it with this shot that we're in right now. If you'll throw that up again, Mason. I adjusted it, looked at my skin. I said, oh, it looks pretty close. So we'll roll with that. And then after time, your eyes will figure out how to do it pretty quickly. Everything else looked good. I don't think I have any other critiques.
Awesome. So I'll just sum it up with the main thing, or the first step that you should take is just opening up those lines of communication with your band. Talk to your electric guitar player and say, hey, the sound really isn't translating well out here in the audience, so I was wondering if we could get together and maybe work on your guitar tone. And then talk to all of your guitar players and say, hey, is everybody tuning before service? Because I need to make sure that everybody's tuned before we get started. Just some conversations like that is going to make a big difference. And then bring your lead vocals to the front of the mix. You're going to take a giant leap forward. All right, anything we need to address in the comments while I load this next one up?
Let's take a look. The drums sound great, but too heavy. So yeah, I commented on that. Cut high pass filter on guitar, acoustic, or cut that player. Dang, that was cutthroat. Wow. Did you say something about a high pass filter on that? No, I didn't notice it having a lot of low end. Did you?
No, I just noticed it needing new tone.
Maybe I just wasn't paying good enough attention.
It was just wrong from the beginning. So let's get it right at the guitar, and then you can dial it in from there.
All righty.
All right, this is Ryan's mix from Open Arms Church. Ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for sending that in. All right, so let's talk about how we can make this mix better. I'm wondering if this is the same situation as the stream from a bit ago where we talked about room EQ, because I'm hearing a lot of EQ issues on almost every channel. Things are just sounding unnatural. EQ should never sound unnatural. It should just clarify, make something sound better. So I'm wondering if you're putting a lot of EQ on your individual channels to compensate for something that's going on in your room. So you want to first start by fixing the response of your room by applying EQ to your main mix. And we call that EQing your room. I have a video that walks you through that from start to finish on the Collaborate Worship YouTube channel. Just search EQ your room and you'll find it there. And once you do that, you're going to find out that you don't need very much EQ at all on individual channels. It's going to be very simplified. You do need some, but it's just not as much as what's going on here. So once you get your room EQ figured out, and the reason it works this way is because, so what you're putting on your main mix is not going to your live stream, because your live stream is coming from a bus mix. So it's like you send everything through your EQ filters on your main mix, which makes it sound better in the room, but then you still have a great mix on your live stream as well, because you're not cutting out things in the live stream that don't need to be cut out because they're not hearing it through the room. So get your room EQ figured out, and then level out that EQ on all of your channels and start fresh, and let's do this from the top. So on your vocals, it should be a very simple EQ where you have a low cut filter, 120 to 180 hertz, and then you may be cutting out in the 400 to 800 hertz range, and then you may be boosting those super high frequencies at 10 kilohertz. If you're doing more than that, if you're boosting at 1 kilohertz, which I think that's what I was hearing, somewhere between 900 and 2000 hertz was just too much in the mix, and that's what was making it sound unnatural. So I'm kind of wondering if there's some boosting going on there. If there is, if you find yourself boosting at 1 kilohertz, 2 kilohertz, or something like that on a vocal, there's probably something else wrong in your mix, because I never find myself boosting in that range. So do that. Go EQ your room, and then restart your EQ on your individual channels, and then see what difference that makes. Now, you're going to have to invest some time in this. I get that. We're talking about a 4 to 6 hour experience here, getting it all right, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Cool. If you'll go ahead and full screen that for me for visual comments. Just two things. I'm going to hit white balance again. It's really close, but it's just looking a little bit magenta. So see if you can drop that tint towards the green a tiny bit, and I think your skin tones will look a little better, and then it's overexposed. So either drop your camera exposure or drop the level of your front lighting, and then they won't look so ghostly anymore. And then he asked for comments on how to light the drummer. We actually talked about that in the last stream. And someone recommended one of those little aperture lights. I can't remember what the model number is, but it's a little rectangle rechargeable aperture. That's the brand, APUTURE. And you can magnetize it to something. You can put it on a stand. You can really mount it any way you want. And you can also hardwire it into the charger, so you don't have to worry about the battery dying. I think that'd probably be the easiest way to light him. They're fairly inexpensive, and they're also RGB, so you could use it for other stuff too, which is cool. I think that's all I got. Yep.
So I'm thinking back to guitar tone, because I saw a comment on that. They were giving some recommendations on pedals and things to use, and it reminded me of an interview that I had with Jimmy. What's his last name? Do you know? I'm blanking out on his last name, but I think his channel is called Hey Worship Leader. Mm-hmm. So I would go YouTube or go search that on YouTube, Hey Worship Leader, and look for Jimmy, because he has a whole video series on getting your guitar tone right. Now, the question is, will your guitar player actually go listen to his advice? I don't know, but if you need some help on getting guitar tone right, he's the guy to go to.
Someone asked about how my suggestions on how to color match PTZ cameras. I wish I could give you a really clear suggestion, but I've never used a PTZ camera. I need to get my hands on one so I can see how you actually adjust them, because I really don't know what the settings in a PTZ camera look like and how you go in and adjust it. But if you're able to go in and fine-tune white balance by Kelvin, do that. And if you're able to also adjust the tint on them, also utilize that. So go and adjust your Kelvin until, like I said, it gets close to what your eye is seeing, and just kind of eyeball each one. You can start off by putting them all on the same Kelvin, but that doesn't always work like you think it would. So start by getting one camera looking good, put all the rest of them on the same Kelvin and tint setting, and then go and fine tune from there if they're off a little bit, because sometimes cameras they'll render colors a tiny bit different even if they're the same camera. And sometimes it'll just pick up lighting differently than one over here is, which is kind of annoying, but that's how it goes. I had another suggestion I was going to give for something a second ago, but now I forgot. Maybe it'll come to me in a second.
Well, let me address. Ryan said that he just ordered his mic to EQ his room, so awesome. You're going to have a lot of fun with that. Well, actually, it's going to be frustrating at first, but it'll end up being fun. And then he said that the EQ on the channels was from what my videos have recommended, and he appreciates that. So I'm wondering if you're using the EQ that I recommend in my courses and things like that. That's not what I was hearing. So maybe there's an EQ on the bus mix or something. I would love for you to just send me your, if you're using the X32, if you can save the scene to a flash drive and then email me the .scn file. It'll enable me to see exactly what you're doing there, and we can dig into that and figure out what's going on.
Jimmy Cooper is his name.
Jimmy Cooper is his name from Hey Worship Leader. That's the guy to go to for guitar tone. Thanks, Mason.
And then Ryan, I think I could help you get those lyrics into some form of like lower thirds or something instead of just having like a copied lyric in the bottom right of what your house display is doing. So if you just message me in Slack, I can help you walk through that. I don't know what live stream program you're using, but we can figure it out together if that's something you're interested in. I just noticed that a second ago.
And Jordan, will you clarify your question about XLR mics, wireless? I'm not sure what you mean there.
I just noticed you look a lot shorter than me in this shot. Kay's not really that much shorter than me.
My torso must be a lot shorter than yours. Oh, the
I think
chair.
Your chair must be lower. I am taller though.
Yep.
By 3 inches.
Which is pretty funny because both of our parents are short. So I don't know where we came from. My dad is like, what, 6 or 8 inches shorter than us?
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
You know what? Why don't we go ahead and review one of our streams since we haven't done it in a couple. Go ahead and pull up go to our channel and then I'll tell you which one. Go there now.
I'm going.
You're fired after this stream. Go to videos and then go to House of Miracles. Let's do that one.
House of Miracles. From the top or in the middle of the song?
You can go to the middle. Let's give her a listen.
Even the coldest rain. Come alive in the name of Jesus. Come alive in the name of Jesus. This is a house of miracles. We bring everything to the feet of Jesus. Everything in the name of Jesus. This is a house of miracles. Come on, sing that out. We sing, come alive in the name of Jesus. Come alive in the name of Jesus. This is a house of miracles. We bring everything to the feet of Jesus. Everything.
All right. I'll let you comment first.
All right, visually related. I need to step forward on the stage because I keep forgetting to do that, and the backlighting is hitting my dang forehead, making it blown out. But it wouldn't be blown out otherwise if I wasn't so far back on the stage. And then this is the look we've been going for lately for the whole worship set. Is we just have the front lighting is actually pretty low. I boosted the exposure in the camera for the worship setting. And then it's just color matched backlighting. And the backlighting is the only thing that's on the vocalist really. And we don't use any color. We don't use any backgrounds. We've really been liking this simple look where the lighting is pretty low and really all you see on the stage is us and lyrics. But comment below what you guys think of that look. I'm curious. It's like kind of minimalist, I suppose.
I thought it sounded pretty good. I would like more of the... Hey, look. The screen just messed up. I would have liked more of the snare drum in that mix. I really wasn't even hearing it. And I like the snare drum to kind of punch me in the chest. So that needed to come up quite a bit. Other than that, I thought there may have been a little bit too much reverb on the backing tracks because they sounded a little bit too spatial. And we kind of ride the line of we like it to sound wide and big, but it's really easy to cross the line and put too much reverb on things to where it just becomes messy. We ride that fine line. Sometimes it's a little bit too much reverb. So if I were to remix that, I would bring the reverb down a little bit kind of overall.
And we like to critique our stream because like me and Kate obviously aren't back there running it. So it's good to, we give the boys a starting point back there at the sound booth and then they do their thing and they do a great job and we just kind of help them learn and tweak as we go. But Mason actually runs our live stream, the guy that's over here switching for us. And he has to set up the camera each week. So getting that properly set up, I'm sure is a hassle sometimes, but he does a great job.
Awesome. So Jordan clarified, he's asking, do you hardwire your mics or only wireless? We are in the process of transitioning to only wireless mics. We actually had them all and one of them was messing up. So one of our vocalists had to go back to a wired mic. I don't necessarily have a preference either way. I mean, there's things that can go wrong either way with a wired mic. Something can happen to your cable with the wireless mics. Of course, the connection issues and interference and things like that. As far as like sound quality, I don't think you notice much of a difference between the two. There is a difference, but you don't notice it.
Especially not after YouTube compresses it.
Yeah, so I think it all boils down to budget, because you're talking for a good wired mic, $100. Good wireless mic, $700. That's a big difference.
And to do it right, we just, like he said, overhauled our mic system. And we got the new Sennheiser EWD series, which is their new digital version of kind of like their old flagship analog mics. And they're really awesome. They're recommended to us by Mic Rentals, and they're kind of a middle range option. They're not even the most expensive you can get. And we needed 2 floor mics and 4 vocalists. We ordered 6 of them. And then we also got distributors for them so that we could send them to an antenna. And I think we got an RF venue antenna, which has helped a lot. We haven't had near as many. I don't think we've had any dropouts really,
Nope.
except for when someone covers up the stinking antenna. You gotta love that. And I think it was what, $6,000 something dollars
Yep.
compared to if you bought 6 wired mics, $600 plus some cables. So, I mean, there's your deciding factor right there.
Yep. And the main reason we even upgraded is because I was tired of having dropouts for like our pastor's mic and our other people who'd come up and talk. And so we needed to get one of those distributors, and all of our mics were kind of on different frequency bands, and we don't tell anybody, but we had a few illegal wireless mics. So
Whoops.
we sold the ones that we could. We did not sell the illegal ones. We'll stop using those. And then we just upgraded the whole wireless system. We couldn't have done this a few years ago. It wouldn't have fit in the budget, but it did now, is why we did it now. So I'd say it all depends on the budget. If your budget doesn't, if you can't get quality wireless with your budget, then just stick with wired mics.
Or just save up until you can.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions we got left?
Ryan said he heard some peaking on the lead vocal or auto-tune clash. I wonder if that's just some peaking, like by the time that it gets to YouTube through our setup here. I'll dial in those settings and make sure that it doesn't do that anymore, because I don't think our actual stream was peaking, but I didn't hear that. Did you?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'll go back and listen to that, Ryan, whenever we're done here and figure out what's going on. Do you suggest placing receivers near the stage or near the mixer? Did the wireless or did the mic guys give you any tips on where to put the wireless receivers?
Just where it can get the clearest direction to your microphones, because most antennas are directional, like exterior antennas. The ones that come on the receivers are omnidirectional, so that's why you'll get a lot of interference with them, because it's picking up from all over. But the ones we got, which is a fin, it's picking up from the fin vertical, and then it has 2 antennas that come out that pick up horizontal what it's pointing at. So we have ours behind the curtain right underneath the LED screen, kind of pointing right to the middle of the front of the stage. And he just said, get it as close as you can to your vocalist, pointing as close to them as you can. You want it like really pointing right at them. Also, what I thought was interesting is that apparently you need different antennas for vertical and horizontal placement. So like if your mic is like this or like this, apparently that sends and picks up differently, which is kind of crazy to me.
It's good to have people for that. We can just ask questions, huh?
Yeah.
So many things to know.
Also, he told me that I was curious about it being behind us because it has to travel through our bodies, like how much human bodies will affect the frequency. And he said as long as it's close, a body is not really going to impact it. But if it's far away, you're definitely going to have some extra issues. So if you have to put it like more than, I think he said 15 feet away from them, then you need to make sure there aren't any obstructions. So little tip for you.
Nice. Somebody was asking what type of mic to use for your pastor, like headset, lapel, things like that. I recommend using the DPA 4088 headset mic. It is one of the few headset mics that has a cardioid pickup pattern instead of an omnidirectional pickup pattern. I do not like omnidirectional mics, and that's what all lapel mics are omnidirectional. Most headset mics are omnidirectional, aside from the DPA 4088. Omnidirectional mics are just asking for feedback. You can never get the volume that you need without the feedback. And that's just frustrating. Well, I guess it all depends on how big your room is and how far away you are from the main speakers. We're in a smaller room. Our speakers are kind of like right above you. And so omnidirectional is never going to work in our room. You're always just going to get feedback. Look into the DPA 4088. It's an investment. It used to only be, I say only because it's changed so much. It used to only be $700. Now it's like $900 thanks to inflation. But to me, it's worth it because what your pastor is saying, your pastor's mic is the most important mic in the room. So you need to make sure you can get it to the volume that you need it to be without having feedback issues. You do not want feedback at all during his message, so it's worth the investment. Of course, a less expensive option would be just to have him hold a mic, because handheld mics also have a cardioid pickup pattern. So there's your options.
Very cool. Someone said, has anyone used the Sennheiser handhelds that are in the $600 range? So the ones I'm talking about, I think they're 700. So I'm curious if that's the ones that you're talking about. They used to be 600, I think. So it's just the EW-D is the ones that we got. And they're basically the same mic as the old EW100s, but they're digital instead of analog. But somehow they still use the same kind of frequencies as the analog ones, but it just processes digitally instead of analog. I don't know how to wrap my brain around that, but that's how it works. But you have better, messing with the receivers is a lot easier on these new ones, because you can just pull up an app on your phone and do everything through that instead of having to push the stupid buttons on the receiver, which is a pain in the butt. And then you can just monitor them like that too. If you have one that's having issues, it'll show on the app, and then you can go in and diagnose it and fix it. And it's just a lot easier to use them. But yeah.
Sweet. Sounds like we need a Q&A on wireless gear.
For sure.
We need to find an expert on that, because I couldn't answer very many of those questions.
Maybe we can get Mike Reynolds to come join us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for joining us for this. It's been a good time. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your comments and your feedback. We're all here to help each other get better, and I think that's what happened today. So if you want your live stream reviewed, you have to be a part of Inner Circle. Just go check it out. Go check out Inner Circle by clicking the link in the description, or just go to collaborateworship.com. You'll see a list there of everything that's included. It's just $12 a month, and it's just a great way for you to get the support that you need and the community that you need to thrive in church audio visual. So we'd love to have you a part of Inner Circle. I think that wraps it up. Got anything else, Dylan?
I don't.
All right. Well, y'all have a good evening, or have a good morning if you're somewhere else around the world, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.